Ready?
I propose with a cigar, the band and the cigar.
I was the same.
Good morning. Can tell nobody's seen anybody in a number of weeks or months. Everybody's chatting. Madam Administrator, let me know when you're all set. You are? Okay, great. So, good morning, everybody. We're going to call the meeting for the public hearing to order at 11 a.m. in room 2C for LIHEAP. Remarks by chairs and ranking members. So, Senator Berthel, are you on? Representative Nuccio?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for getting together today. You know, this program is near and dear to my heart, so I look forward to hearing the plan. Thank you.
Representative Walker? Senator Seminara? Representative Case?
Morning, Madam Chair.
Senator Lesser?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This program is obviously important to many members of the legislature, and it's important to hear the plan before us, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. I will note, Madam Chair, as you know, in the last regular session, the legislature was able to provide some additional state support for the LIHEAP program. Some of that funds were not expended and are not being carried forward today, and we'd love to hear, in addition to hearing the proposal today, just an update on what happened in 2024. Thank you very much.
Representative Gilchrist?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just good to be here this morning. Looking forward to hearing the plan.
Senator Fazio, Representative Buckby,
Good morning, Madam Chair. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it all.
Senator Needleman, Representative Steinberg.
Good morning, Madam Chair. No surprise that energy is on everybody's minds these days. I hope we can stay focused on the task at hand and people we're trying to help. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty then. So we have a block grant allocation plan for review today. This is relative to the FFY 25 Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program allocation plan. And first up, we have the Department of Social Services with Commissioner Barton Reeves at the helm. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Senator, and thank you. So good morning, Chairs Austin, Walker, Gilchrist, Lesser, Needleman, and Steinberg, and Vice Chairs Hartley, Exum, Paris, Gaston, Dathan, McCrory, and Foster, and Ranking Members Berthel, Nuccio, Seminara, Case, Fazio, and Buckby, and distinguished members of the Appropriations, Human Services, and Energy and Technology Committees. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today in support of Governor Lamont's federal fiscal year 2025 allocation plan for the low-income home energy assistance program, commonly known as the LIHEAP Block Grant. I am Andrea Barton Reeves, the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services, and I'm here today with my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Peter Hadley, to present to you
one of our loyal members.
Year 2025 LIHEAP allocation plan. I'm also joined by other representatives of the department to offer any answers to questions that you may have. I am not going to read from my written testimony, or essentially that's the end of what I will read from my written testimony. And I will ask Sue to please just fire up the slides for us so that we can get moving through them. I'll present the first few and then my colleague will present the, Deputy Commissioner Hadley will present the rest. So we can go to slide 2. Thank you. So as we know, the LIHEAP program is administered by the Office of Community Services through the United States Department of Health and Human Services, and its primary function is to provide states with funding to assist households with lower incomes to meet their energy needs. That program is administered, LIHEAP, through the Department of Social Services, and it's known as CEAP, our Connecticut Energy Assistance Program. Next slide. Thank you. We would like to thank Governor Lamont, the General Assembly, the Office of Policy and Management for their continued support, along with many of our partners who are really vital to implementing this program, and you see them listed here. And we would also like to thank the low energy, what we call the LIHEAP, the low income energy and water advisory board for their support and recommendations for FY 2025. We love our acronyms in state service. We do. Okay. Moving on to the considerations for our presentation today and for the plan for this year. It is in fact based on assumptions of level funding with the base grant for FY 2025, and that has been the case, as you'll see in one of our exhibits, for at least the last 10 years. Program eligibility remains the same. We will speak about that in more detail, and the basic benefit levels remain the same. All deliverable fuel households are now eligible, though, for up to 3 rounds of crisis assistance, and that is an additional round as compared to last year's plan. The budget does, in fact, assume a 6.5% increase in program enrollment, and that does equate to a 5% increase over the average enrollment over the last 2 years. About 74.8 million of the total projected 88.5 million is directed to benefits for deliverable fuel vendor payments in deliverable fuel households. With respect to the deliverable fuel vendors, their participation actually remains adequate. It is at 80% of vendors accepting new customers in our last program year. And finally, based on what the legislature asked us to do last year, we are convening a legislatively mandated working group to study the feasibility of other deliverable fuel reimbursement options, including bulk purchasing. And now I will turn over the presentation to my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Peter Hadler.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will go through the next few slides, giving some background on our operations, some key dates, funding levels, and other key elements of the LIHEAP allocation plan that has been presented to you.
Deputy Commissioner, if you could just say your name, please.
Certainly. Peter Hadler, Deputy Commissioner at the Connecticut Department of Social Services.
Thank you.
So one of our critical administrative partners is our state's community action agencies. There are 9 around the state, and all of them participate in helping to administer the LIHEAP program by taking applications, determining eligibility, and issuing vendor payments. We have a few key dates for review here. The first day when we start taking applications for this upcoming season is September 1st, 2024. Recognizing that's Labor Day weekend, the offices will be open on September 3rd for in-person applications at the community action agencies. November 1st is our first day for fuel deliveries, as it has historically been, and April 1st, 2025 is the deadline for fuel delivery authorizations. May 30th is the last day that a household can apply to establish eligibility for benefits, and June 17th is the last day to submit any deliverable fuel bills from the season. Next slide, please. We do want to highlight a few things that we've been able to accomplish over the last few years, and they have really made significant improvements in the process and operations of the SEEP program. We have launched an online application, which is available through ct.gov/heatinghelp. We have instituted some advanced data matches between DSS and the community action agencies for income eligibility verification. This has really helped to streamline operations, and the customer experience has been greatly improved, reducing the need for redundant submission of paperwork establishing income eligibility. We've established universal electronic fund transfer and invoice filing options for fuel vendors, so we are entirely electronic now. There's no need for paper submissions of bills and invoices. We have instituted a 10-business-day issuance of payments to vendors to help with cash flow. This was previously a 30-day period. And again, we maintain the Heating Help website to identify other utility assistance programs and other means for folks to be able to help afford their cost of energy. Next slide, please. We are maintaining the categorical eligibility for income for households where a household member receives any of the food or cash assistance benefits listed on the screen. SNAP, our temporary family assistance program, which is our cash assistance program funded through the TANF block grant, our state SUP program, refugee cash assistance, or supplemental security income. This is really valuable because folks who are enrolled in these programs have already gone through a rigorous means testing to ensure that their income qualifies them for those programs, and correspondingly, we can eliminate the step for them to have to repeat that paperwork when applying for SEEP. Next slide, please. So this slide has got a lot of information on it. I want to highlight a few items. This is really the picture of our federal funding over the past 7 years. As you can see, if you go to the total line down second from the bottom, things have changed quite significantly. During the pandemic years, 21 through 23, we saw very significant enhanced federal funding that allowed us to increase benefit levels across the board. We have been now for the last 2 years returning very close to our historical norm. The block grant itself has remained pretty much flat over time. Congress has not authorized significant increases to the bottom line block grant. So as of course, over time, the value of that shrinks with the cost of living, and the dollars have to be stretched further. You can also see that our caseload has grown very significantly in recent years. We went from 73,000 up to 92,000 in 22, and then jumped again to 105,000 in 23. We saw a slight decline this past year, but based on that trajectory that we've seen in the recent past, we are projecting a 6.5% increase over last year, which is a 5% increase in enrollment over the last 2 years average. A couple of notes I just wanted to identify because there's been, I want to draw a distinction between certain kinds of federal funding. There have been two rounds of support from the legislature allocating state ARPA funds, which are not depicted on this chart. In November of 2022, the legislature authorized $30 million as a backstop in the event that federal funding did not come through. There were concerns that Congress would not be able to pass additional legislation, but they did in fact do so and delivered the funding. Those $30 million were not necessary and were returned to be reallocated. Furthermore, in this past February, you'll see that there was additional funding was provided, as you all know, to help support an additional round of crisis assistance. Those numbers are not embedded in that total for fiscal year 24 because that's a separate state ARPA directed funding. The next slide will show you a breakdown of that funds, how much was used, how many folks were served, and the amount that was actually returned because we did not use the full amount that was allocated. So here we've got a quick overview of that funding that was provided to households who had exhausted benefits this past winter. We had $13.5 million that was allocated to DSS to provide to households who had exhausted their deliverable fuel benefits during this past winter. And we were able to provide benefits to 17,000 households, additional round of assistance. This came out to about $8.5 million. The remainder, approximately $5 million, was returned and then has been reallocated through the legislative process. There was also funding provided to Operation Fuel to help support folks who did not necessarily qualify for SEEP or who are otherwise served directly by Operation Fuel. That allocation started at $3.5 million. It was reduced to 1.75. The 1.75 was fully expended in support of 2,879 households, and the remainder was returned back to the legislature. And here we have a comparison of how things compare from last year to this year. I'm just going to start on that bottom table. You'll see where our original numbers were when we proposed our plan last season. The numbers in red were where we started, and the numbers in green were the amount that became available to deliverable fuel households once that additional funding was provided for another round of crisis assistance. Now you'll see if you compare that total with SEAP to the max benefit for this year, we've managed to identify funding to be able to provide that full amount of crisis assistance in our standard offerings for this year. So all households who heat with deliverable fuel will now be eligible for 3 rounds of crisis assistance. You'll see the max benefit aligns very closely to where we landed last year after the legislature provided additional state-directed ARPA funds. We were able to find additional funds within our budget, both by examining more closely the uptake rate of our crisis assistance. We had previously assumed a very high usage, and our experience has shown that some households use all of their benefits and some don't. By refining that methodology, we were able to say that we can offer more households more benefits up front. We also had some carry forward funding. Our enrollment was slightly lower than we had anticipated last year, which provided more funding within the budget, some of which we put into this upcoming year and is allowing us to offer these additional crisis assistance. And there's one other element that is contributing to our ability to offer more of those, which is that our partners at DEEP have agreed to a funding allocation within their line item under the LIHEAP block grant that has freed up some dollars to be able to support more crisis assistance. We think that this really reflects the legislature's intent to address a concern where folks are potentially exhausting benefits during those winter months. And we are hopeful that this is meeting the legislative intent based on the actions that were taken this past session. Here we have an overview of general eligibility, so you can get a sense of what the different levels are for income qualifications for the program. That's that bottom chart. And you can see it again on the top as well, and you see the amount of benefits that are offered to folks. Just want to note, right, the basic benefit amount is eligible for all households, regardless of the fuel type that they use to heat with. The crisis assistance is only eligible for deliverable fuel households, and this is because households that use gas or electric utility-based heat are protected by the winter shutoff moratorium. So the dollars are focused to help support those deliverable fuel households who are more at risk of running out of fuel during the winter months. And here's some background information that I hope you find helpful. Just to give context, we talk a lot about the deliverable fuel households and how we're able to support them using the crisis assistance, but deliverable fuel actually only comprises about 1/3 of our total program enrollees. 2/3 of folks who are enrolled in SEEP utilize utility heat as their primary source of heat. Natural gas, 43% of all of our customers are using natural gas, 23% are using primarily electric. And home heating oil is by far the dominant type of deliverable fuel. There's some households that use propane and a handful that use other types such as kerosene, coal, wood. I just wanted to also note that our federal U.S. Energy Information Administration has forecasted that the price of oil will either drop or maintain relatively steady this year. It is obviously something that is a challenge for us every year. We never know quite exactly where things will be. So that is one of the variables in our budget that creates a challenge for us to try to estimate the budget and allocate funds the best way. But cautiously optimistic with our federal partners, having identified relatively steady oil prices for this upcoming season. As the commissioner mentioned, we have convened our legislatively mandated working group to study best practices related to pricing standards for deliverable fuel vendors, while also ensuring that we're maximizing benefits for the consumers. So we have put together a working group, and you can see the 5 members who have filled the roles identified by that legislation. We had our first meeting on August 5th, just last week. Anyone who wants to attend is more than welcome to, and you can find all the information about that working group on our website at that link. We will be meeting at least monthly from now until the end of the year in order to be able to report back out to you all on the results of that study by January 31st. A few other items that are part of the LIHEAP allocation plan that I wanted to briefly touch on are under our conservation services header. We have 3 primary programs that we provide funding for: the Weatherization Barrier Remediation Program, or REPS, that is administered by our sister state agency at DEEP, the Heating System Repair and Replacement Program that we administer at DSS, and the Clean, Tune, and Test of heating systems that we also provide funding for to households in need of that service. Next slide, please. So we provide support to the DEEP's Weatherization Residential Energy Preparation Services, and that's that REPS acronym. And the intent of this is to ameliorate health and safety barriers to weatherization. By utilizing some LIHEAP funding to address health and safety issues, we can free up dollars for them to be able to provide weatherization to households in need. This is what distinction between what weatherization dollars can cover and when other funding is needed to help support health and safety issues. DEEP is expecting an average expenditure of about $8,000 per home for the weatherization barrier remediation work, with a maximum expenditure of up to $15,000. This year's plan, which we developed in coordination with DEEP, has $500,000 allocated for the REPS program. This is a slight reduction from last year, but is intended to meet the needs of the REPS program while also allowing us to offer additional benefits for customers who are using deliverable fuel at crisis assistance, part of the matrix that we identified earlier. Next slide, please. So another key part of our program is the Heating System Repair Replacement Program. When energy systems become unsafe or inoperable in owner-occupied or life-tenant-occupied homes, we can support households with replacing the components or the entire systems that they need. This is a really important program for those families who suddenly find themselves with a totally inoperable furnace or boiler in the middle of the winter. It allows us to be able to support them and stay in their house by repairing or replacing their heating systems. I just wanted to quickly identify that most of these heating systems are oil systems, and generally speaking, we replace the system with the same type of system that broke, that usually because there's only maybe a component that needs to be replaced rather than a full, a replacement of all components of a system. We have to be cautious, of course, staying within our funding limits to be able to support as many households as possible. Ideally, someday in the future, maybe we can look at some of the more advanced energy efficiency and different types of system replacements. There may be an opportunity for us to encourage additional energy efficiency in this program. And of course, we have our Clean, Tune, and Test, as I referenced, which, as the name implies, is just that. It helps to make sure that deliverable fuel heating equipment is ready for the heating season. We also include some of our LIHEAP funding that we provide to SNAP households. This is an important component of the program. It allows us to, by providing a direct cash benefit of $20.01 to individuals who are applying for or enrolled in SNAP, it allows us to use a standard utility allowance in the calculation of their SNAP benefits. This generally results in substantially increased federally funded SNAP benefits, right? SNAP is a 100% federally funded program. This unlocks many millions of dollars for households around Connecticut and simplifies the administrative process so they don't have to show electric bills and utility costs when they're applying for SNAP. So there's administrative efficiencies in on the SNAP program, as well as a very substantial direct benefit to households who are SNAP recipients. Approximately 90,000 households benefited from this in fiscal year 24. So quickly, just going to summarize the key aspects of this year's plan. We are assuming level funding at the state's base grant from last year. We have enrollment growth projected at 6.5%, which again is about 5% when you look at the last 2 years total enrollment. We have provided additional crisis assistance benefits for all levels of SEEP households compared to last year's plan. There's no reduction in the fixed margin for deliverable fuel vendors. We're continuing our categorical income eligibility for households enrolled in SNAP or cash assistance. We have level funding for heating system repair or replacement. And again, in coordination and agreement with DEEP, We've allocated $500,000 for the weatherization barrier remediation program. That will bring us to the end, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I just want, for clarity's sake, the carry forward that you talk about is not general fund carry forward. It is carry forward of the funds within the confines of this program.
Absolutely correct. It is the carry forward is exclusively federal dollars that we are bringing from one program year into the next. Again, due to us coming a little bit under budget last year, we had the opportunity to allocate those same funds. We're allowed to bring up to 10% over from one year to another under federal rules. And that is what we've done to be able to offer additional benefits for this year. It is not general fund funds, though. It is LIHEAP federal funding.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that for clarity's sake. So questions? Up first is Representative Ackert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hope you can hear me okay. First of all, Deputy Commissioner, I want to thank you for adding the slide to break down the type of heating sources. I do appreciate that. I know there was a comment started about electrical rates, but I think that 23% being fed by the electricity, that cost may climb a little bit. So we'll see what happens after the end of this year. But I thank you again for including that slide. And then the only question I have is, I see the program distribution to be $74.8 million, but a total program cost of 88.5. That 15.5%, is that to administer the program with our allies?
Yeah, that is part of it. I think if you look at the allocation plan itself, you can see the full breakdown of the 88.5 million. It includes some of those other items that we described, the clean tune test, the system repair, the SNAP allocation, the funding for DEEP, as well as administrative costs for the program.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. That's all I have. Thank you again.
Representative Cheeseman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I believe you stated that 80% of the vendors in the program are accepting new customers. In terms of distribution throughout the state, is this the same in all parts of the state? Regardless of where you live in the state, do you have the ability to contract with a vendor if you need it?
No, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, a very brief answer to that is yes. And we do monitor and keep track of that. We're, very much working with our community actions agency partners who are keenly aware of what vendors are available to support households within the geographic areas that they serve. We have seen full state coverage this past year and didn't see any problems with shortfalls in any particular area around the state.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Nolan.
Good morning, morning still. Could you just explain some of the strategies that you use to ensure our vulnerable populations, like our elderly and our disabled, are aware of, and how you're reaching out to make sure that they understand the ways that we give out the LIHEAP funding?
I'll start. So thank you for your question. We do quite a bit of work with our community action agencies. They are the primary drivers of information going out into the communities. We also have our own type of, I'd say, information distribution, but it is primarily through the community action agencies that we let people know that they are eligible. There is also information on each of the community action agencies' websites, and you can also find that on Operation Fuel. Some people go there, and then when the program opens, we also put information on our own website. There is also an opportunity to ask if you go to any one of our 12 resource centers across the state. You can also find out information about LIHEAP there. Although we don't accept applications there, we do inform people of the existence of the LIHEAP program, and they find it there. We often have customers that just come year after year, and they're also very familiar. And so they are actually anticipating the September 1 deadline. We already have community action agencies that are already receiving inquiries as to when the application process will open. But your question is an excellent one, in that we were just discussing over this past week other ways in which we can reach out to people, because we don't necessarily exercise as much influence around social media to reach out to people as well. So that's another strategy that we'll be employing. And we used it to great effect to let people know that they needed to change their PIN in order to keep their SNAP benefits secure. And we found that we had great uptake through social media. So we'll be adding that to our LIHEAP outreach program.
Okay. Are there flyers and things out there that you can send us, or
Yes,
if you
we
have them,
can.
resend them to us so that
Yes, we can do that.
you know,
If I could just add one other thing, oh, sorry.
You can come back.
I'll come back.
Just on that very specific, we're also exploring the use of text messaging, which is something that we recently gained authorization to be able to do for many of our programs. So that's a potential another opportunity and channel for us to be able to communicate with people about the availability of SEEP. We can also potentially, one of the recommendations that came from our partners over at LIHEAP was to explore putting a link on our other application sites to help people connect more directly. Those are both things that we're taking under consideration, hoping to be able to implement through this upcoming year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Representative Greco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting back to the vendors, I recall in years past, you had issues with having vendors that were willing to participate in the program. What's changed to have you have the increase in the number of vendors that are participating or anticipated to participate this year?
I would say one of the greatest factors in the increase is the 10-day payment. I think that was a significant advantage to having more vendors remain in the program and to be paid more quickly. And I think also the signaling of the continued willingness to speak with our vendor community, and you can see that with respect to the work group, and those communications have been happening beforehand. But the one work group meeting we had was very successful. We're continuing to have those dialogues. So I think those were the two factors that really were encouraging and have led vendors to remain participating in the program.
And if we stick to the 2-question limit, the follow-up would be advertising the availability of the LIHEAP funds, but how do you let your LIHEAP customers know that they could be potentially eligible for energy efficiency upgrades through DEEP? I mean, is it by, hey, your bill is $10,000, think you should seal up your windows? How is that determined?
That's another great question, right? And that's something that we again work very closely with our community action agency partners on. They are partners in supporting DEEP's efforts as well. So there's really an opportunity when people come to apply to be able to explore other programs they might be eligible for. That is probably our key entry point for us to be able to help direct people to other services. Again, we're trying to accumulate everything on our Heating Help website as well, so that people have who are going online and looking to apply have some access and understanding of other programs that are available to them. But it's something that we can always, continue to work on. I'm sure there's more ways for us to continue to spread the word, especially as there's additional funding available for energy efficiency in the coming years. Anticipating that, not knowing all the details, I would defer to our colleagues at DEEP about all those things that are coming down the pipeline. But I think there's probably opportunities for us to continue to spread that message about energy efficiency opportunities along with energy assistance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we have a 2-question limit, so I'm going to have to cycle through a couple of times. I have 7 questions. I counted them. So my first couple questions here. I'm wondering how are you working with or accounting for the new Eversource program, the income-based program that Pura instituted regarding having to pay a maximum of 10 or 50% of your electric bill into what we're looking at for the people who have electric heat for LIHEAP?
Thanks for that question, Rep. Nuccio. We are helping to support the low-income discount rate program by providing data. That's our role. We are looking to be able to provide information about the programs that people are enrolled in to help identify their income eligibility for different levels of potential assistance. Again, that's really sort of Pura is obviously leading the charge on that, and we are helping to play a supporting role just to help identify eligible households, again, without having folks have to go through redundant paperwork production, re-verification of income. We know from administering many means tested programs what a household's income is, so we are able to help facilitate that connection without repetitive paperwork.
So my concern here, though, is not just like the paperwork and reporting. It's a $101 million program that we are paying in the public benefits. So I'm concerned that there might be some overlap.
Representative Nuccio, if we could just stick to a question and not explain the whole thing, that would be really helpful.
Well, that's my question though, Madam Chair, is how are we making sure that there's no overlap between these two programs? You know, one is $101 million, and then we have LIHEAP, that's a portion of it is electric. So what are we doing at the government level to ensure that A, the benefits are adjusted if they're only paying 10% of their budgets, and then like that we're not duplicating payments?
Just one point of clarification from my understanding, which is that by matching into the low income discount rate, you're getting a 10% discount off a portion of your bill. So it is not.
No, that's not correct. No, I spoke to Eversource the other day.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're not going to argue about the Eversource issue right now. If you could let Mr. Hadler, the Deputy Commissioner, finish his statement, and then I'll come back to you for your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh question.
I don't think I have much more to add to that. I mean, really, again, our role here is to sort of facilitate a data match, right? If we can identify someone who's receiving DSS benefits, we can help to streamline the paperwork process for eligibility for that. Again, PURA has, I believe, open dockets. We're trying to provide information, but we really have a supporting role that is limited to the data match when it comes to that program.
Thank you. Up next is Representative Delnicki.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. You made a comment pertaining to fuel vendors, and that was a real crisis situation last year. And you made the statement that we have an increase in the number of vendors from last year to this year. What can you quantify what that increase is?
Yeah, it's relatively modest. It's been fairly level for years, but I think it is important. There was a lot of concern that we would not have enough deliverable fuel vendors to support deliveries and access concerns around the state. And those concerns have not materialized. We've again been able to have, as the statute requires, an adequate supply. We do believe that we have an adequate supply, and I think it's noteworthy, right, that about 80% of the folks who are participating are willing to take new customers. So we have a built-in layer. If some vendors were to not participate, other ones would be willing to step in.
So how many exactly do we have in the way of new vendors?
We will get you the number of new vendors, Representative. So unless, Kathy, do you have that number? Okay, we're getting it for you right now. That's why we brought other people. Yeah.
Okay, if you could get that out.
Yes, we'll get it.
Because I think that can substantiate the improvements that have occurred in the program. Secondly, you referenced the U.S. Department of Energy and their predictions on the cost of fuel oil. And you stated that it would be basically flat in the way of change, up or down from where we were last year.
Yes, that's their prediction to date.
And how accurate have they been?
It's a good question. I haven't gone back to look. That's their bailiwick. We assume that they're doing their best to identify the likely scenarios. But of course, as we all know, like the weather, some things are highly unpredictable, and oil prices are one of them. I will just note, of course, right, we offer up to a certain dollar threshold. So the dollars go as far as they go. If oil becomes significantly more expensive, the dollars don't go as far. And that's pretty straightforward equation, I think. Unfortunately, it's a block grant. It's not entitlement. We can't just increase it if we want to.
Well, I thank you for your answer there. And if you could get me the information pertaining to the increase in vendors, that would be great. And how effective the Department of Energy's Ouija board has been over the past 5 years, just so that we have a good feel for what's going on there in the funding and how it's being allocated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, about 250 vendors were enrolled this past year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Felipe.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Deputy Commissioner, for your presentation. I do want to say for the record, Tammy Nuccio asked one of my questions, Representative Nuccio, so she's only 4 over par if you're keeping score. My smaller question is on the enrollment slide that you had in the slideshow, there wasn't a specific trend I could point to. Can you tell us how you got to an increase this year from past trends? Because obviously it only went back to 2019.
I'm sorry, Representative, an increase in which numbers are you referencing?
Enrollment
Enrollment, okay.
projected for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, this is obviously something that we wrestle with every year. In order to be able to establish the budget and the structure, we have to make an estimate of how many people might enroll in the program. Again, even though we saw a slight decrease from last year into this most recent season, we have seen several years of very significant growth. So, you know, in the event that we see very significant growth again, we don't want to be able to be in a position where we need to close the program or otherwise reduce benefits. So we're taking a you know, our best estimate of where we will land in the upcoming year. If for some reason we are slightly lower than we were as we were this past year, it does free up the opportunity both for us to deliver additional benefits to households or to bring carryover into the next season. So the estimate is really based on, you know, again, historical trends over the last 3-4 years. Some of the work that we've done for making access a little bit more straightforward. We are also working on enhancing our online portal for people to be able to apply again, sort of to recertify without resubmitting all of their basic information. So we're hoping that some of these process improvements don't, you know, help alleviate some of the barriers that folks might find to enrolling. And in general, we think that, you know, 5% over the last 2 years average is a good estimate, but it is, when it's all said and done, of course, an estimate.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Up next, Representative Foster.
Hi, thank you, Madam Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you and grateful for the collaboration we've had over the LIHEAP program in the last 2 legislative sessions. I think we've made some progress, but my primary question, and I think you might see this coming, is in the report that you have pending. Has there been collaboration with the regional oil vendors on the regional price study yet to date? And does that look like the report is going to propose an amenable solution that's comfortable for those regions that are currently the most challenging to serve off of the New Haven rack pricing?
Thanks for that question, Representative Foster. We are certainly looking forward to discussing that in the working group. We've done a lot of work. We know there was some disagreement about how to interpret that particular component of this legislation last year. We've worked diligently to compile lots of data from multiple data sources to model an alternative pricing mechanism, and we're looking forward to discussing it with the working group to get their input on whether that's a viable option for next season.
So has it been shared yet, the data with the partner fuel oil vendors, particularly including representation for the challenging to serve regions that are far from the New Haven rack?
The Connecticut Energy Marketers Association is representing the deliverable fuel vendors on the working group, so I believe that their voices will be heard. It's an open meeting to the public. We welcome other input and commentary to be able to help inform our study. We're anticipating that will be the subject of conversation at our next meeting.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, Senator Austin, do you mind if I just, because I re-asked the same question twice to get clarity? My single other question is, I'd like to sort of understand, you've sort of alluded to an increase in vendors. One of the reasons why I hear that my local vendors have stopped participation in the program is because the differential from the regional rack is problematic. And so we have seen a decrease in vendors in my specific area, and at least the consideration for vendors to leave, despite the state total numbers, according to you, going up. But I am curious about whether or not the additional money that's now being returned could have been used for regional differential rack pricing. And that's my last question. I apologize. Thank you.
I'll start by responding to your question, Representative. No, it could not have been used because legislatively it was limited to benefits for customers that were getting deliverable fuel. So there was no mechanism to redirect those resources to deliverable fuel oil vendors. So to deliverable fuel vendors. So that's the first. Then the second, the thing is that, and I think this is the question you're asking, and please forgive me if I'm wrong. While we left last session, or at least last year, really seriously contemplating and thinking about ways in which we could continue to do the research that we had already started, quite frankly, within the agency to see where we could make adjustments in the rack rates, as you had mentioned. But then also realized that there was a working group that had been established. So it seemed to us that it made more sense to have those conversations in the context of the working group. Well, we will share the information that we've gathered to date because some research has been done. But certainly it would seem premature for us to make a decision without having the input and feedback from others who have a stake in that decision making and also should absolutely have a voice. So some of the work has been done. We're continuing to do the work, and no, we could not have reallocated those resources that way because that wasn't their legislative intent.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I just hope next year for these decisions that when there are draft plans and working groups concurrently, that maybe we can reshuffle the working groups so that they can inform the plans that we're voting on. And I know that that's the part-time legislature chronology is challenging, but thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is Senator Seminara. Senator Seminara. I think she's frozen. If anybody has her number, if they could contact her, that would be great. Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually had my question asked and answered by one of our colleagues, so I don't have a question at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative hold on, Representative Piscopo. Senator Seminara, are you on now? Senator Seminara? You are muted.
Yes, sorry, Madam Chair. I appreciate you waiting a moment. And thank you for the presentation, Commissioner. I just have one quick question, and I'm sorry if I might have missed it in your presentation. Do we have an idea of how many people exhausted their benefits from last season?
We do. I need to get that number again. I used to know these numbers off the top of my head, but I will I will get them for you. Yeah, I think we.
No, I also don't
Yeah,
have
I
it at the
think
top of my head, but we can provide that
Yeah,
information to
they're
you.
right. We have all of
Okay,
the experts right
that
behind you getting this.
some of my previous questions were already asked, so that is the one remaining question that I had that hasn't been answered yet. So if you can get me that information, that would be great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, for your presentation. Deputy Commissioner, you've fielded a number of questions on the volatility of the oil price, and just a naive question is: when you go into a contract with each vendor, is a lot of them will offer a set price contractually for the season. That would help you with your budget, avoid that volatility. So when you go into a contract with each local vendor, do you ask for a set price up front, or is that not available?
It's a great question. So the way that the payment mechanism, the reimbursement model works is that we set a daily price that we are willing to pay, right? This is the price of oil that day with a margin. So it's about 60 cents per gallon on average for around the state, depending on the geographic location. If the vendor is offering a lower rate at their retail, then that's the rate that would apply for the particular delivery. So we're not entering into season-long contracts with each of the vendors for a specific price or volume. It's to be able to deliver, by household at the dollar threshold when the request is made for a delivery.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, for your presentation. I have a very quick question. It relates to the REPS program, and you mentioned in your opening remarks that there was a reduction. Could you just say how many households take advantage of that program, and the same with the LIHEAP conservation? I know these are two excellent programs. Just curious about how many households you're serving.
That is a good question. I do not have the number at my fingertips for the REPS program. I don't know if our partners at Deep are available and could provide that information, or if somebody can. Hello, Vicky. Come on in.
Thank you. Good morning, Victoria Hackett, Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy at DEEP, and we oversee the REPS program. So currently, we have served 189 units since April 27th, 2023, and we have 89 units served using this LIHEAP funding so far, because some of the units are not leveraging the LIHEAP funding. They're using other sources of funding, ARPA in particular. So, yes, 189 units served so far, and an additional 137 have work actively in progress.
Okay, thank you for that information. And if I may, with a personal note, Madam Chair, I would just like to recognize the community action agencies for all the great work that they do with DSS in delivering the LIHEAP program. I think it's important to mention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Pizzuto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, during the presentation, they mentioned about repair and service. Many of these furnaces are old. You wait for oil deliveries, the filters and so forth. If there was the availability of natural gas, would they convert those systems where you wouldn't have oil deliveries or filter cleanings or any of that? I don't know if that's an option, or would they just replace it with another oil furnace?
So thank you for the question. Usually because of the, excuse me, the emergency status that most of our clients find themselves in, there isn't really an opportunity to determine whether there should be a wholesale change in the type of fuel that they're getting. And also, because we have such limited funds in the programs, it may seem like a lot of money, but it really isn't, given the demand and the numbers of people that really need the change. We tend to just replace the system that they currently. So we wouldn't do a complete wholesale conversion from oil to gas under the program.
If someone did a cost benefit analysis, they would find out it may be a lot less expensive and save money in the long run. But thank you for your answer.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Representative Nuccio?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Focusing on the LIHEAP grant, please.
Ma'am, I understand. I'm focused on the LIHEAP grant. That question was a LIHEAP grant question.
Thank you.
From the perspective of DSS, I know last year we talked a little bit about the administration cost of this program. Can you tell me how much of the federal funds are being used for administration and DSS, please?
We're looking, Senator Representative Nuccio.
Thank you. It's okay. Don't take your time.
Okay.
That's rolled up in several numbers, so we don't have it broken out specifically, but we can certainly get you that number.
I would appreciate that. I talked last year about taking the cost of DSS administration out of the LIHEAP portion. And I know as of right now, I believe DSS is lapsing about 1.1 million in the prior budget. So I'm definitely interested to see what the administration cost is. And if we can put that into the DSS area, that frees up $1 million or more for LIHEAP participants. So I would like to get that information back as soon as you can, please. The next question that I have is in regard to the reduction. The 13.5 that was allocated from the legislature to DSS for the program was reduced by 8.5 million. Do you happen to know why or where it went?
Yes. So the reduction, are you talking about the reduction from the 13.5 to the 8 million?
Yes, I am, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. So those monies were distributed to our community action agencies, and they used it. They used all of the money that they needed for the time that the program was available. So if you recall, and I'm sure you do, that that allocation did not happen until early March, which is really late in the season for LIHEAP. And it happened to be a particularly warm season as well. I think, if I remember correctly, I think the week after the allocation came through, it was a week when it was in the 60s. So we also had lower demand because our customer base tends to respond to the weather as it's existing at the time that they're applying. So there were also lower than anticipated applications at the time. So we didn't end up using the entire allocation of the 13.5. Each one of our community action agencies, I think, and many of them are here, really did what I think is a spectacular job in moving that money out as quickly as possible. We got their contracts approved within 7 to 10 days. So thank you very much in public to the Attorney General's office for helping us make that happen. And we were able to get the money to them as quickly as possible. They responded to all of the need. No one went without anything. But in the end, the actual demand ended up being about $8.5 million. It was ARPA funds, so we returned those to the state.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. That's helpful. How does that interact with the carryover of I think it's like 7.7 million this year?
Yeah, so none of the money that's in the carryover is part of those ARPA funds. Those ARPA funds were completely separate and segregated. We gave it to the community action agencies. They spent it within the time frame that they had to spend it. They gave out as much as they possibly could, and then we returned the ARPA funds. So the carryover really is, there's no part of that that's in here at all. It is all federal carryover money, and that's based on the program itself without the supplemental payment that was part of the 13.5 million.
Thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. Can you guys confirm, you guys are back to doing asset and income validation checks, correct?
We obviously do income verifications. That's the core component of all of our programs, but we do not have an asset test in the LIHEAP program and have not for several years.
Okay, so we're doing the income tax. Now, has that impacted the enrollment? I know we're looking at, it was a spike high in 21, 23, or 21 to 22, and then it's kind of down in 23, and we're expecting it to go up again next year. So how do you see that kind of playing out?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, as it relates to the asset test,
No, it's the income test, man. Yeah,
sorry, as it relates to the income test, there's really not a correlation, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's, there are some administrative efficiency gains that have made it easier for people to complete an application end to end and enroll. So I think that contributes in some amount to, folks, instead of having incomplete applications, more are getting completed, and a percentage of those people are eligible. It's very hard to sort of isolate any particular, reason for the increase. It was the pandemic. There was a lot of things going on in people's lives, and benefits were significantly higher for several of those years. So, that may have been something that folks took more advantage of because they saw potential greater assistance in their energy need for those years. Again, this is recent history. We are trying to anticipate what will happen in the next year. Obviously, as things stabilize and we're sort of at a basic level funding for several years, we'll have a better sense of where enrollment will be. But a lot of factors go into whether it's a cold winter, whether fuel prices are high, what the benefit levels are. Many variables can help contribute to enrollment.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to go to Representative Case and then come back to me.
I want to know how many more questions you have because I have you up to 6.
Well, listen,
far
you're
that you
taking
have
the last
asked.
one.
So you only have one more?
No, I have a couple more, but I don't know if you want to go to Representative Case first.
No, I want you to finish your question so that we can move on. So
perfect. Okay. Just as a quick follow-up to what you mentioned, the application. I just had a resident that, I found it very useful to go to the DSS website to have the button there to say, how do you apply and all of that. How difficult is it to get the LIHEAP application included in that application area for DSS right now?
It is a question that we feel quite often, and actually it's quite complex because our current systems are designed primarily taking applications for SNAP and Medicaid and for TFA. We also obviously have an opportunity to take in applications for long-term services and supports. Because almost all of our applications come to our community action agencies, that would mean that we'd have to find ways to gather data where we are, build systems so that each one of them could also then receive that application data, make sure it isn't duplicated, and to make sure that our community action agencies have what they need in order to process the applications. We know that this question comes up quite often, and we find that the most efficient way to let people get access to LIHEAP is to go to their community action agencies and to let them know that the LIHEAP benefit is available. And also, if you go to a community action agency, they also have the ability to help people apply for Medicaid and SNAP as well. So there's no wrong door when it comes to working with our CAAs in order to get all of the benefits in the same place.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think that's something maybe we can work on going forward. In your presentation, you mentioned deep freed up dollars, and I didn't see. I'm wondering what exactly does that mean? What dollars did they free up for the program?
So their previous year's allocations for these programs was $1 million. So we went to our D partners and said, well, the history is that you've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 650 or 500,000 to 650,000. We would really like an opportunity in addition to the other funds that we identified to reallocate those dollars for a higher benefit. Because we heard the legislature and I've watched very clearly that there is a desire to make sure that there are at least 3 tranches of benefits that are available, rather than have the 2 that we could allocate with the dollars that we had available under the fund, and knowing that the additional funds from ARPA and other federal funds that we had are not coming back. So I'd have to say that our D partners heard us and they were very cooperative and collaborative and working with us, and thought that the $500,000 number was an adequate number for them to meet the needs based on their spending, and I think our mutual desire to make sure that there was more than adequate amounts of support for people to get a 3rd tranche of benefit support, and that's how we came to that number.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that work. That's great. I'm glad that it was based on the actuals of what they had. So going forward, there's more. And then my last question, the reduction in the REPS program, is this a reduction because we have not used or expensed there, or are we going to be servicing less people? Because I know there's a lot of people that really rely on that program.
I'm gonna let Vicky answer that question.
Thank you both for answering all of my questions. I appreciate it.
Hi, Vicky Hackett, Bureau Chief, Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy at DEEP. So we are actually spending more than we did last year, but we have another source of funding in the ARPA funding right now. And so given the pressures on the LIHEAP budget, we agreed to, utilize more of the ARPA funding for this year and less LIHEAP funding. So the reason for having less LIHEAP funding than anticipated in our first year was just the ramp up time that was necessary to get the program running and to get our contracts worked out and our approach worked out for use of the LIHEAP funding, which is more complicated than using the ARPA funding. So, but we want to maintain the relationship that we've built up with DSS and this funding source over time. It's been a lot of work to set up the program. We've worked really closely together. I think it's a great success story. So we did keep the 500,000 in so we could keep the ball rolling and maintain this as a potential longer term funding source than the ARPA funding, which is a relatively short term funding source. So it was just trying to strike that balance in coordination with our sister agency.
So I appreciate that. Is there a concern when the ARPA funding goes away, though, that 500,000 may not be enough to supplement the entire program? How are we keeping track of that to make sure when ARPA goes away, we still have money for the program?
That's a very good question, and we're already thinking about that. So one of the things that we're looking at with hopefully your support, there was a change made, and I'm going to forget the Public Act, to the revolving loan and grant program using bond funding to change some of that to grant funding last year. That was supported by you all at the legislature. And I think that's one of the things that we'll be looking at as the ARPA funding falls off is accessing some of that. There's also the potential to use one of the things we talked about in our Solar for All technical meeting yesterday was using some Solar for All funding to help with enabling upgrades to support solar. And some of those, including roof improvements, could also have the even more impactful impact of supporting mold remediation and insulation in roofs. So can also help support the weatherization program. So we're carefully looking at braiding all of our various sources of funding to support the REPS program. It's important to remember that we can't currently use CNLM, Conservation and Load Management funding, because that has to pass a cost benefit test that has to be directly related to reducing energy costs, whereas this funding is preparing a home to do those extra services that reduce the energy costs, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Representative Case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment and one question. So the comment first is I just think we have to, this is a great program that we need to formalize with the federal dollars and make this happen. I just want to be cautious on the energy market and what Deputy Commissioner has put forth. You know, the market is not stable as of right now. And as of this week, it's taken a big hike, a bigger hike than we'd like to see, you know, 2 cents a day, which is rather high. So the futures are even higher. So hope through the working group, we can figure out a way that we can stabilize our pricing so that we can buy in the summer and save in the winter. Because come October 1st, the winter fuel comes into effect and it's 10 cents more. So with that, I mean, I know you talked about that we're working on in the working group, but in 2023, we had legislation that put forward the regional pricing and the same day pricing as Rep. Foster was talking about. We need to really stick to that and work on that if we're going to make sure that we can get the best bang for the buck with this program, because those delivery fees are going up and up and up. And I guess my question is to Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner, how often do you get reported to by the federal government as where the prices are?
Yeah, thanks, Rep. Case. That's not something that we are getting provided by our federal partners. That's one of the reasons why we tap into several of the marketplace information sources. Again, Opus, which we use to help inform the pricing for the fixed margin pricing program. We've also explored using an alternative source known as DTN. I do not know what that acronym stands for, but it's another company that provides wholesale information on the state. We're looking forward to being able to discuss, the differences between those two sources when we talk about the alternative model at our next working group meeting.
Perfect. I think that's going to help our program throughout the state, because if people look at it, and once again, we need to get this through today. We need to get this money going. I don't believe there's going to be added dollars that we had in the past years, but there is going to be an increase of people that need this program. But to have the Northwest and the Eastern corner having less of an increase than what they get on the shoreline just doesn't make sense. And I think we have to come to a conclusion. If we want more people into this program, we need to seriously enact what we put together 2023. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Case, thank you. Commissioner, I hear that there's a correction to be made on page 5.
Yes, I do believe that there's actually, we have, both of us will do that. So I will respond by saying that there was a question that was posed. I believe it was Representative Delnicki, and I apologize if I was wrong, about the number of systems that have been replaced, and that's 110. And then I'll let Deputy Commissioner Hadler speak to the correction.
Thank you. Just wanted to note very quickly that we have a typographical error in our state median income chart on page 5 of the allocation plan. We will update it to reflect the correct number. This is identified as well in our written testimony, exactly that number. It is really just one digit is off in one of the charts that we have, and we will be fixing that when we submit the plan.
Thank you. Okay, up next is Nora Duncan. We're now into the public speaker component of things. You guys are all set right now. You can stay around if you want. 3 minutes, Nora. Okay, very good. I won't. I promise. Very good.
Good afternoon. I'm Nora Duncan. And thanks for having us here today, as I am representing the Low Income Energy Advisory and Water Board. Water is new. Claire Coleman, the chairwoman, apologizes for not being able to be here, but I am stepping in as the vice chair to give our testimony today. LIHEAP met and approved the recommendations that are in the testimony that we submitted for the 24-25 LIHEAP program year. And you'll see in our submitted testimony the formal response from DSS to those recommendations as well. I do want to say it's good that I'm going first because there's a bunch of people who do this for like 100% of their living coming up after me. I do this for like 3% of my living. So they know a lot more about detailed questions on the program, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them for you. In terms of our recommendations, I just want to highlight a few things. The plan proposes that the fiscal year for 2025 block grant funding will remain level. As you know, same basic benefit as in the 2024 fiscal year. And so we recognize as a board that this is federal funding and not state funding. We are concerned that the basic benefit is not enough and not enough to enable many low-income customers to pay for their energy costs. Last year at this time, we did recommend and encourage you all to think about how the state can supplement block grant funding to increase the basic benefit without risking emergency funds. And, you know, we do greatly appreciate the supplemental funds that were appropriated in February during the special session, I believe. In October 15th,
I think you went up front.
Representative Rosario. On October 15th, we owe you a first biennial report with recommendations. That's going to have a lot more detail. That's being worked on, and you will receive it on October 15th. And we're hoping that that promotes, it's kind of been mentioned here today, a better, more long-term constructive conversation. So it's not necessarily aligned exactly with budget years or off budget years, but the reports are coming into you prior to the beginning of a new biennium. And then additionally, we're really interested in removing existing barriers to accessing energy assistance in the crisis that we're basically facing as a state, as we know. And DSS has made a lot of progress, and there's some concerns that further optimization may have some barriers for a uniform one-step application process. So the board is committed to getting together the partners needed to make sure that we could have an application process that is more seamless moving forward and is great for customers, great for the CAAs, and great for the program. So that'll probably be part of our recommendations, if not in October 15th at a later date. So there's not, you know, a lot else to add. Our recommendations are in there. There's quite a few more, as well as continuing ongoing best practices that are based on many of the improvements made over the last several years. And so I just, you know, draw your attention to that and to DSS's responses. And the board looks forward to submitting our October 15th report and working with you guys on potentially how we, you know, continue to fund this program.
Very good. Nora, you're all.
I hear Sue's bell, so.
I see no questions, so you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Chris Herb. Chris, 3 minutes.
She went the full 3 minutes just to know that she was wrong. She didn't have 2 minutes worth. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Herb. I'm the president of the Connecticut Energy Marketers Association. We represent 600 deliverable fuel vendors, which only a fraction participate in the program. One of the points that was made by DSS is that 80% of the ones that are participating, and like you said, that is the vast minority, that would be an F on most report cards by having such a small group of a fairly large group of entire participants in the full marketplace. That are accepting new customers. I would say that that is a function of the changes that the legislature made. In Public Act 23204, the legislature approved 4 changes in the law to improve the program so that vendors would be able to participate more freely under the constraints of the way that the program is currently comprised with a margin over rack program that other energy providers like electric utilities and natural gas utilities do not have to abide by. They get paid their full market rate. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that the reason why vendors that are in the program are continuing to participate is, number one, the loyalty to their customers. I can tell you that if we lined them up and we didn't bring in 200 dealers to talk to you who participate and another 400 that don't participate to explain to you this, because we've done that for years now. So what I want to communicate to you is the program continues to be broken and it continues to be discriminatory against small family-owned businesses compared to large multi-state operator utilities. And And so I wouldn't say that this is a success story. I would say that this is a survival story. Your customer is not having ample options. They may have one option of someone to deliver to them, but this is clearly not a mainstream program where they have dozens of options like customers who do not rely on LIHEAP dollars have. So I just wanted to make sure that we set the level straight. I did submit formal testimony that outlines all of the issues that we have, but I just thought that it was important that we start there. Not a story that we should be proud of, a story that we're hanging on and making sure that everyone is served is not the best story. I would say that since the plan for the second consecutive year, there was no working group last year, but it was pointed to that they did not want to include statutory required changes this year because of the existence of a working group. Well, this is the second year a plan has been submitted without all of the statutory requirements the legislature passed, and there was no working group last year. So I don't think that's a legitimate excuse. If I was a legislator, I would probably take that as a personal affront to your authority and your being co-equal branches of government under the state constitution, that the executive branch continues to not follow the law. With that being said, I am representing SEMA on the working group. I believe that DSS wants to seriously consider how to achieve those statutory requirements, and we will be participating in that group and making sure that they hear clearly how to achieve compliance with the law. Thank you.
Hold on 1 minute. Mr. Herb, you have questions? Representative Nuccio?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, sir, you tapped into something that I have heard. Again, I'm in the northeast corner of the state, and out here we really only have small mom and pop oil companies. So I have heard some frustration from them regarding the program. And I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit on, you said the program is broken for the small businesses. And there's definitely issues between people who are using electricity for their delivery and then oil for their delivery. So could you please expand a little bit more on what exactly we need to fix to get this under control?
Well, one of the things that the working group will be dealing with is looking at other states that administer LIHEAP funding. And what you'll see, and I included this in my testimony the last several years, is that other states do it very differently, and the ones that do it similarly do it in a way that allows vendors to more freely participate. So I think that taking a serious look at providing various options to deliverable fuel vendors and allowing them to choose the ones that work for them and their customers probably makes a lot of sense. If we're not able to break through and adopt the way that it's administered in other states here in Connecticut, and we have to stick to what we've been doing since probably the 80s, I think that there are, if we address the regional pricing so that districts like yours and places in Connecticut that get further and further away from New Haven are able to compensate for the different prices that those regions have, that will be another step forward in ensuring that vendors can participate. The other one, and even though we've seen stabilization in prices, that's a relative term, stabilization, but not as dramatic as we saw on the invasion of Russia into Ukraine a few years ago. Because those prices, the sort of hyperbolic movements in the market have slowed, I think that there's still a risk, and I mean we are seeing right now the potential for open war in the Middle East that can have a real shock to the pricing system, which means that the other requirement of the law, which is same-day pricing, will eventually need to be addressed. That same-day pricing eliminates the volatility risk that a vendor takes by pricing that occurs the day before. It was sort of cute language in the change in last year's plan to this year's plan about saying how they are paying the same day of the price, but all you have to do is look at the plan, and my testimony has a screenshot of it that shows that it's actually done exactly the same as always been done, which gives you that daily volatility risk. So I think that if we're not going to do wholesale changes, adopting at minimum what the law requires is going to provide many deliverable fuel vendors protections that it would take to remain in the program without being exposed to losing money on deliveries like we did during the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Thank you for that. I think those were the two biggest issues that I heard about, which was, the regional pricing, the fact that, I'm pretty far from New Haven in the northeast corner. So getting that delivery of the oil up here means there's a difference in the pricing, and also the same day pricing. I'm disappointed to hear that we're not actually doing that. I thought we had changed that. So thank you for elaborating. I appreciate it.
And to DSS's credit, the move to 10-day and our partners at the community action agencies have gone a long way in helping. So I don't want to leave these committees with the belief that there hasn't been improvements, but those improvements have come from changes in the law.
Perfect. Thank you.
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following up on this line of questioning, we were very hopeful that the change to requiring a 10-day payment would make a huge impact, and we're glad it's been incrementally helpful. But you made mention that if the state were more flexible, perhaps adopting aspects of programs that other states have, could you elaborate a little bit more on what those options you refer to are and why you surmise the state of Connecticut has not been as amenable to those options?
Well, first, I'll start with the end part of the question is that we have been principally administering the program from a deliverable fuel vendor pricing standpoint since its inception. So there's been changes to the margin has grown over time. The margin over rack program has changed. There was a county differential that was added to reflect changes in costs, not to reflect changes in rack pricing from region to region, but in the cost of operation. Obviously, it's more expensive in Westport to operate an oil company than it is in Wyndham. So there have been a couple of small changes to the foundational New Haven Opus rack average margin over rack program. If you look at other states, for instance, New York, I think has 4 or 5 different pricing systems that vendors can choose from. A discount off of retail is one where the vendor can take their retail price and offer sort of what might be their veterans discount, their senior discount, their friends and family discount to their customers. So whatever their customary discount off of retail program is one that would be available to their energy assistance customers. Other programs that New York also allows them to provide the lowest price that they provide their customers would also be the price that would apply to their energy assistance customers. So let's say if you have an employee discount, that might be your lowest price. That would also have to be the price that you apply to your energy assistance customers. There are other states that do individual negotiation. I wouldn't recommend this one with the community action agencies to determine what those prices should be for those, but it might be something to look at. It might be working better in Rhode Island and than I could conceive it to be. But that is another thing that I think that we should explore. There are states that allow vendors to actually charge the full price that they charge a regular customer, like Eversource does and Yankee Gas does and Connecticut Natural Gas. That absolutely ensures that there is vibrant competition. There are plenty of options and that these customers are able to be mainstreamed into the way that every other customer is treated in the marketplace. So those are just a little glimpse. If I went over all 40 of them, we'd be here all day,
And we are not going to be here all day, Mr. Herb.
Just answering the
I
question
think
past my 3 minutes.
Some of these questions might be better during an energy and technology public hearing when we get back into session. Go ahead, Mr. Steinberg, just kidding.
I do believe, Madam Chair, that this is explicitly pertinent to the program. So I'm just going to thank Mr. Herb for elaborating a bit on what those options are. I imagine what is viewed as flexibility by the industry could be viewed as complexity for those administering the programs. But I'm really hopeful that the dialogue we're supposed to be having with the group that you are involved in will consider such more modest fixes if it would actually increase participation. I take your point that we still have a ways to go if we really want to offer people options and keep an industry solvent. But it sounds like we're more likely to do incremental steps than wholesale foundational changes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Case.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Herb, for coming forward and talking and also working on the working group. Just a question to you, because I think if we come to these meetings on a yearly basis to do this allocation of these funds, if we were able to procure this fuel in the midsummer, we'd be coming here telling you how many exact customers we could furnish because the fuel would be locked in, and that is possible, correct? Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think that the working group's going to tackle that issue. I will tell you that in the 24 years I've been here, we have looked at various other programs like prepay, pre-purchase programs, bulk purchasing programs, and I look forward to seeing what the results of that data looks like. And you are correct that many retailers offer summer fills that tend to lead to discounts, but I will hedge by saying that the unpredictable nature of energy markets is we can see huge increases and we can see huge decreases. But I look forward to that exercise to find out what's in the best interest of these customers.
And thank you, through you, Madam Chair. But Mr. Herb, if we were able to hedge half of these gallons or half of the dollars, we'd have a little more accurate number of how many people we could sustain through the program. Is that correct in saying?
You absolutely would have predictability. A program like that would have exact certainty. You would know how many gallons that you would be able to serve energy assistance customers based on the amount of dollars that would be allocated to a program like that. So you are correct.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you on the working group, and hopefully we can follow through with some of these solutions that have come forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Delnicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's good to see you, Chris. During the testimony we heard previously, the question was asked or the comment was asked pertaining to the number of new vendors, dealers, et cetera, that have actually joined into the program. And maybe you can put some light onto, based on the concerns I've heard from you and reading your testimony, it almost seems like there's still a huge detriment to people, businesses, to actually get into that program to help folks out in need.
So, in terms of the raw numbers, I think I heard in the testimony that the number that DSS was citing was pertaining to the amount of current participating vendors that are willing to take on more customers. That's different than I think the question that was asked of how many more vendors are in the program. So I think there was a little bit of a disconnect between the question and what the answer was. The answer was about capacity to take on new customers for existing vendors, not how many new vendors are in the program. I'm sure that they have those numbers, and I don't have access to that. I will tell you, if there has been an increase, SEMA worked very hard with legislators on Public Act 23-204 and Public Act 24-145. We had to come back 2 times to try to get this right. And we spread far and wide to the vendor community that the changes in the law are all the reason to get back into the program. So we really pushed hard, because if you recall my testimony from 3 years ago, we were here saying that people were dropping out, and they were dropping out mid-season. That's why those changes in the law were necessary, and I do believe it attracted some back. Only half of the requirements of the law were implemented, so I think some of them came back under false pretenses, and that's what I'm concerned about. I'm not here to say the sky is falling. I'm not here to say we won't piece this together, because that's my job, is to go find how to get these customers served. I just don't want to be in that position. I want them to have many options, and that's what I'm concerned about. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care. Let's get it fixed now, and hopefully the working group will accomplish that.
Just one follow-up comment. It almost strikes me that the industry that you represent wants to be part of the solution, but based on what was enumerated in here on the overhead changes, on what it takes to operate the business successfully and not have to close their doors, we need to have a little more action here. Is that a fair comment?
It's a fair comment. I will say that Cassandra Norfleet Johnson from DSS has worked very hard to try to bridge some of the gaps that we've seen, but ultimately action by the department is going to have to occur, I think, to get to where we all want to be, so that you don't have to listen to them at 3 minutes and all the questions that come after them.
I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the small businesses in my community, some that have actually dropped out of the program. And we obviously need to do a substantial more deep dive and work to get it to the point where it makes sense for everyone and we have a 100% viable program. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
All set.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris, thank you for your testimony. Are there specific pieces of the legislation that we failed to enact that you think are crucial to the vendors? I'm thinking from 2 points of view. One, I want to make sure we have a broad-based distribution system. Two, even, I'm sitting on energy and technology, but I'm also co-chair of commerce. I want to see our small businesses who are involved in this incentivized to participate and improve their economic health, and make sure that we're using more retail distribution versus bigger industrial or larger companies that may not have their profit center in my state. So just your thoughts on what we need. You think which pieces we need to? I know you had the whole host of suggestions last year, and that were failed to enact all of them. Which ones do you think are crucial at this point?
No, actually, you did enact them. They were not implemented in the plan.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So I think the two remaining ones are the same day pricing to eliminate that day-to-day price volatility, and the regional pricing to reflect the different cost of fuel at different racks. We have a specific proposal on this. I hope that it doesn't require legislation for it to be implemented. I hope that the working group bubbles out of the results of the working group and it is implemented in next year's plan. It's unfortunate we have to wait another year after that law passed in 2023.
Okay. Well, thank you for your advocacy. It's always helpful to have you here advocating for the industry. No further questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set, Chris.
Okay, thanks.
You can go. Run away. Rhonda Evans, are you here? Pam, the floor is yours. 3 minutes. And yes, we wait until you sit down. Don't worry.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Evans, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Association for Community Action, CAFCA. Thank you so much for this opportunity to hold this hearing today and to hear our testimony. As you know, the community action agencies are proud partners with the Department of Social Services in raising awareness and enrolling people in the Connecticut Energy Assistance Program, or CEAP, which is Connecticut's version of LIHEAP. Last year, CEAP helped over 100,000 families statewide with home heating costs to avoid unnecessary energy crises. And right now, the community action agencies once again stand ready and willing to help families navigate the CEAP application process starting on September 1st when intake begins. One of the things that's always important for us to note is that when a family comes into a community action agency and applies for CEAP, it really opens the door to a host of other services that families may not even be aware that they may be eligible for. And that includes things such as housing assistance, childcare, or even assistance in applying for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. This is the effective integrated social delivery system that community action agencies have in place throughout the state. We all know that Connecticut is a high energy cost state, ranking among the top 10 states in overall energy costs, with being number 7 in the nation overall and 5th for electricity alone. And we know that and with the rising cost of electricity, those numbers may likely change. So for this reason, this is particularly a challenge for families who are living below 100% of the federal poverty level, who may be struggling to make ends meet. The situation is even worse. They spend about 26% of their annual income on energy bills. And so that means that they're constantly being pushed into crisis mode, having to make choices about heating their home and other essential things like groceries, housing, medical care, and even childcare. So the LIHEAP program makes a huge difference for these families in their lives. And while it primarily helps them afford high home energy costs, it also does it at its core, it's a health and safety program. So the availability of the LIHEAP program here in Connecticut is vital. So CAFCA supports the proposed fiscal year 25 LIHEAP allocation plan and understands that it was developed within the confines of the projected federal block grant funding. However, there's just a couple of things I'd like to briefly mention for your consideration. And it was also mentioned previously by my colleague Nora Duncan, and that Kafka believes that that we really need to contemplate and to consider increasing the basic benefit amount. We need to increase the benefit levels. In recent years, apart from the spike during COVID, the benefit levels have been reduced. And in my testimony, there's a table that sort of that sort of points it out, as well as there's some visuals, I believe that was the purpose presented by the department. So overall, the reduced funding from the government, we recognize that this decrease is due to decreased funding from the federal government, but energy costs have gone up, not have gone down. And for families who are struggling to make ends meet, who are living at or below the very close to the federal poverty level, having the LIHEAP basic benefit be reduced or continually to be reduced is not helping them to really to meet their energy costs. So one of the things that we'd like you to consider is to figure out some mechanism in which the basic benefit can be increased. Because while we appreciate the addition of the third crisis benefit in this current plan, we recognize that there still may be some opportunities or for improvement as far as that is concerned. And the other thing we like to point out is that we frequently, because of carry forward dollars and a bunch of other factors, that for the last several years, the department has announced supplemental fundings toward the end or at the end of the program. And while we appreciate that, and those are benefit the customers, we also would think that it would be helpful if the amounts and those could be distributed earlier so that customers can have a better sense of planning and be able to make other opportunities and choices for their families. And lastly, I'd just like to say thank you all, as well as to Commissioner Barton-Reeves and her team for the continued support of the LIHEAP program and the benefit that it provides to Connecticut residents who are most in need. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you got off easy, no questions.
Yay.
You are all set.
Thank you.
Up next is Gannon Long. Is Gannon Long here?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Chairs, ranking members, senators, representatives. I'm Gannon Long, the Chief Program and Policy Officer at Operation Fuel. We're a standing member of the Low Income Energy and Water Advisory Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We also want to thank Consumer Counsel Claire Coleman, who's the chair of the LIHEAP, and Nora Duncan, who spoke earlier from AARP, the vice chair, for their leadership on the board. We also want to thank the Department of Social Services, in particular Cassandra Norfleet Johnson, and Lynette Pisani, who worked really hard to develop this year's plans and continue engaging with the board, the CAAs and other stakeholders to streamline service. And of course, we want to thank our partners at CAFCA, Rhonda Evans and her team, and our CAA partners around the state. We're here primarily to endorse the department's plan and to support the board's recommendations. And we request your support for this year's plan to vote yes to accept these federal energy assistance dollars through LIHEAP. We also ask legislators here today to consider allocating additional state funds to provide assistance through SEEP that will help families get through this winter. When SEEP funds run out, families turn to Operation Fuel to keep their light and their heat on. And while we will always be part of our state's emergency solution and the energy assistance landscape here, we know that the gap is greater than we are able to close at Operation Fuel on our own. Until a few years ago, we were able to be open nearly year-round. Today, we aren't able to stay open for more than a couple of months due to growing costs, growing demands, and relatively flat funding. So we want to be able to be there for folks who need us. This year's expected LIHEAP funding is roughly 4% over last year. It's not a huge increase considering how much costs continue to climb while families' incomes in Connecticut are not keeping up with those costs. And so we believe that addressing this funding gap earlier on or as early as you can would be helpful, possibly before the session starts, to make sure that agencies can plan and disperse the funds quickly and to stave off any crisis that may come this winter in our state. So I just want to thank you all for considering that. Thank you for your support for the plan, and thank you for your service. And we're available for any questions today or another time.
Representative Case.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So through last year, we supplemented some money to Operation Fuel. What is your budget now? Is that does any of the LIHEAP money come to you, or are you flat funded?
LIHEAP money doesn't come to Operation Fuel. Last February, the legislature allocated $3.5 million to Operation Fuel. But the way that the funding was distributed, we got the first half of that. And then the second half was reallocated by the legislature. So we got 1.75 in addition last year to the regular funding that we have. This year, we are expecting, our budget typically is between $5 and $6 million annually. So we're expecting that same number. Our SBC funding that we receive from ratepayers has been set at $2.1 million since 2015. So that has been the same level.
So you're through you, Madam Chair. So you're going to run a budget this year without those extra state dollars. And how many customers did that extra state dollars help you serve? Because we won't have that this year as of right now. That was emergency appropriation, I believe.
The exact number, and I think we're still finalizing this, but I think it's between 28 and 2,900 additional households that we were able to serve with those funds. So it was definitely an increase. Based on our predictable known funding of the 2.1 million, we typically can serve around 6,000 families in the state. So in a year, so this helped us get beyond that number.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for taking up the overflow of what we had with the LIHEAP program.
Oh, and I'm sorry, to answer your other question, we do not have any LIHEAP funding or SEEP funding at all at Operation Fuel. And thank you for your support, Rep. Case.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Seminara.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick question. So is it my understanding then that you exhausted all of your funding last time? And were all of your recipients, did anybody exhaust their benefits as well?
So Operation Fuel just provides one energy assistance grant per year per client. In certain circumstances, we can give an additional benefit or that benefit level may change, but in general, that's how we do it. So we weren't able to give additional benefits. What we ended up doing with the ARPA money that we got last year was to increase the award amount from $500 to $1,000. That's very complicated to do mid-season. It's very complicated to explain that to clients or even to fuel banks. So we don't expect to be in that situation going forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Case, you have your hand up. Are you trying to ask more questions, sir?
One more question for a second time, Madam Chair. So, Matt, I forgot to ask this question to DSS, but I'll try to get that answer later on. So how many applications or people that requested service were you not able to fulfill? I know there's a number that's out there for DSS of unopened applications. Did you have any that were unopened that we couldn't fulfill?
We have gotten, I would say, probably a few thousand people that were not able to complete their application in time with the information that we need to be able to approve it, or who have tried to apply after we stopped accepting applications. I don't know the exact number. It's a little bit hard to deduplicate how people apply in our system. I think that's going to be a reporting improvement that you'll see this coming year, but I would estimate it at a few thousand people that needed assistance or requested it or tried to request it from Operation Fuel, but weren't able to, based on either funds being expired or based on them not getting the information in within the time that we needed them to.
Once again,
thank you.
Senator Seminara, are you asking a second question too? I hope you guys know we'd like to finish by 1, and we're probably not going to be done until about 2 now. So keep going.
My apologies. I do have one more question. So if there are 1,000 people waiting for services, did you allocated additional money? You said you upped your benefit from 500 to 1,000 to those who already were receiving the benefit. But yet there were people who didn't get any money on your waiting list. Do I understand that correctly?
There are people who were not able to access Operation Fuel assistance because they either applied after the window had closed for us to process their application, or they applied without the necessary documents that we needed to approve them. Our benefit levels had been set, and again, it's just one per family per year. So our benefit level was set at $500 at the beginning of the season, which started in January. We were looking at closing around the middle of February based on how many applications we already had at that time, and we wanted to be able to support those, which was why we came here, and you guys were very gracious and gave us additional funds so we could stay open until March 15th. In order to just kind of looking at the math, and at the time we were planning to have 3.5 million, we ended up only having 1.75. But in order to make the most of that allocation, and we were obligated to spend it by, or committed at least by June 30th this year. Again, this changed in May, so it's a little bit different as we went through the season, but our original plan getting that funding in February was to be able to expend it by June. We increased the award amount. So people who had applied or that we processed after we had received those funds were able to access the higher award amount.
Okay, that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, and thank you for answering.
Thank you for your question, Senator.
I think you're all set.
Thank you, Senator.
Up next is Catherine Aramis. She's online. Catherine, 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Catherine Erasmus. I am the CEO of Taylor Energy, which is in East Windsor, Connecticut. I serve towns all throughout that area, all the way west to Norfolk, Connecticut, the icebox of Connecticut. So you can imagine it's very cold up there. We burn a lot of oil. I'm a small business. Part of our core values is to be part of the community. To do that, that means you have to support the community. This program is so very important to so many people, and to make it work correctly, to be partners instead of working against each other. I'm going to challenge everybody to look at 2 different items. And I'm going to kind of go off of what Chris Herb was saying. One is there's a very large discrimination on price points between heating oil versus electricity, or heating oil versus natural gas. I don't understand why this is such a sticking point, but this should be something that we're focused on to make it fair for everybody. I'm sorry.
Keep going. Just keep going. There's nobody talking but you.
Okay. Secondly, I think there's a disconnect on the pricing that we're looking at for the New Haven rack. Because I am so far north in Connecticut, their costs are, it costs us more to get the fuel from New Haven to our terminal and then deliver it to our customers. I think that's something that we need to work on as well.
Thank you. We have no other questions. You're all set. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hold on. Representative Foster.
Hi, I'm sorry. Just a quick question for Catherine. It's my constituent. I'm grateful that you're here today testifying. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask a question. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the regional price difference, because we've discussed this year over year. This is the 3rd year we're having this conversation. In my time here in the legislature, and I'm sure it's been happening for much longer. Can you explain? The current regional pricing model does offer a differential by region. Can you explain how far off that is compared to the folks who are using the New Haven rack and shopping the New Haven rack compared to your prices?
Sure. It kind of depends on the situation. If we are looking at a volatile environment, prices are going to be different. I mean, I've seen prices between 10 cents and 35 cents. It kind of is situational, depends on weather, it depends on roads. If we have let's say we have the governor shut down the roads and we can't get the product we want. Sometimes we have to go to Wethersfield. Sometimes you have to go to Springfield to pick up product. And the further north you go, the cost is much larger of a cost to get that fuel.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think this regional area has really faced this issue. And since in the 4 years that I've been in the legislature, it's just you and one other local family-owned business left in the market. Right now, 2 other family-owned businesses have dropped out. So my specific service area is the exact opposite of the data that DSS has been sharing for the number of companies there. And I'm grateful for you for being a partner and trying to testify and explain how this is working. And I hope that you can play a role actively with SEMA in the working group. Thanks for being here, Catherine. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Nuccio.
I just wanted to kind of pile on to that because as Rep. Foster just said, her district borders my district. And it is this area up here in the Northeast that is extremely penalized by these rates, by the fact that we're so far from New Haven and we are colder. We're not down by the water, so we get a lot colder weather up here. And it is a disadvantage when you only have one supplier in the area for all of this program. So this is something that I agree with Rep. Foster on. We really need to focus on this. I too have been hearing about it for the last 4 years, and the fact that we're not doing anything is kind of embarrassing. So I'd like to see us move forward with trying to address this issue. Thank you for coming forward, Catherine.
Of course. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing no one else, you're all set, ma'am?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Going to close the Appropriations, Energy and Technology and Human Services public hearing regarding the LIHEAP allocation plans. Our public hearing is now closed. And we're going to move on to the committee meeting. Madam Administrator, please let us know when you're ready. Are you ready? So I would strongly suggest that you all contact people because we do not leave votes open. So please let people know now is the time to come on to the link. Now is the time.
We're ready.
Representative Steinberg, I think you're going first with energy and technology.
Lucky us. Thank you. Perhaps your wonderful administrator can share with us the precise call so that we can get it. You saw me coming. Thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion that the 2025 Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program allocation plan with a correction on page 5 as requested by the DSS. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Bresco,
Second.
seconded by Representative Krasinski. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Hearing none, I think we're ready for a vote. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Senator Needleman,
Yes.
Representative Steinberg,
Yes.
Senator McCrory, Representative Foster,
Representative Foster votes yes.
Senator Fazio, Representative Buckby,
Representative Buckby votes yes.
Representative Ackert,
Representative Ackert votes yes.
Representative Ali Brennan, Senator Cabrera,
Senator Cabrera votes yes.
Representative Cheeseman,
Yes.
Representative D'Amico,
Representative D'Amico votes yes.
Representative Ferraro, Representative Gresco,
Yes.
Representative Horn,
Rep. Horn votes yes.
Senator Marr,
Senator Marr votes yes.
Senator Maroney, Representative Meskers,
Sorry about that. Representative Meskers votes yes.
Representative Mushinski,
Rep. Mashinsky votes yes.
Representative Piscopo,
Yes.
and Representative Tersiak. All set.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. When you're ready, you could announce the tally.
Tally is 14 yay and 6 absent.
Thank you. The motion passes. The Energy and Technology Committee will adjourn. Back to you. No,
Recess. You
recess. Thank you. The Energy and Technology Committee will go to recess on the Jungle Gym bars. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Human Resources is up next. Human Services is up next. I'm apparently completely in a totally different world right now. Human Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to convene the meeting of the Human Services Committee and ask for a motion and second on the fiscal year 25 low income home energy assistance program allocation plan on page 5 as requested by DSS. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All
Second.
right. Motion by Rep. Case, second by Rep. Hughes. Is there discussion? Representative Case.
Yeah, real quick on the human services side, I think we really need to look into a few things because this is a program that we need to move forward. But reported to me after the season last year, there were 1,600 applications in DS that were still pending that didn't get service, and there's over 2,000 applications at new opportunities. So we think this is going to be stable going forward with the dollars, but we're leaving almost 1,600 behind in one agency and 2,000 behind in another agency. So I think we need to ask those questions and find out how those people made it through the winter. And with that, I suggest we move this forward for a vote.
Thank you, Representative Case. I hope we can answer some of those questions at the working group. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Lesser,
Senator Lesser, aye.
Representative Gilchrist,
Yes.
Senator Seminara,
Senator Seminara votes yes.
Representative Case,
Representative Case votes yes.
Senator Gaston, Representative Dathan,
Representative Dathan votes yes.
Senator Marr,
Senator Marr votes yes.
Representative Butler,
Representative Butler votes yes.
Representative Comey,
Representative Comey votes yes.
Representative Cook,
Representative Cook votes yes.
Representative Fortier, Representative Heffernan,
Representative Heffernan votes yes.
Representative Hughes,
Representative Hughes votes yes.
Representative Johnson,
Representative Johnson votes yes.
Representative Kitt,
Representative Kitt votes yes.
Representative Leeper,
Representative Leeper votes yes.
Representative Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
Representative Buckby,
Representative Buckby votes yes.
Representative Ferraro, Representative Mastro Francesco, Representative Pizzuto,
Representative Pizzuto votes yes.
Representative Paletta. Thank you. Or are there any other members on the Human Services Committee that has not yet voted and would like to do so now? Thank you.
When you're ready, would the clerk please announce the tally?
Total number of voting 17, those voting A 17, those voting nay 0, 0 abstaining, and 5 absent and not voting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion passes. The Human Services Committee will go into recess.
So, good afternoon. I will convene the meeting. The chair, I will ask for a motion and a second on the FY 25 low income home energy assistance program allocation plan with the correction on page 5 as requested by DSS. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Nolan.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Del Dickey. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. And Madam Administrator, if you could call the roll, please.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the affirmative.
Representative Walker, Senator Hartley,
Senator Hartley in the affirmative.
Representative Exum.
Just tell me.
Representative Paris. Senator Berthel.
Good afternoon, Madam Administrator. Senator Berthel votes yes.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Representative Nuccio.
Representative Nuccio votes yes.
Senator Anwar.
Senator Anwar votes yes.
Representative Baker. Representative Belinsky.
Representative Belinsky votes in the affirmative.
Representative Callahan.
Representative Callahan votes yes.
Representative Candelaria. Representative Chalesky, good Lord.
Representative Chalesky votes yes.
I have Senator Austin's tongue-tiedness today. Representative Curry. Okay. Representative Dathan.
Representative Dathan votes yes.
Representative DiCaprio.
DiCaprio votes yes.
Representative Delaney.
Representative Delaney in the affirmative.
Representative Delnicki.
Yes.
Representative Dillon.
Dillon votes yes.
Representative Felipe.
Representative Felipe votes yes.
Senator Flexer.
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Representative Fonsello.
Representative Fonsello votes yes.
Representative Garibay.
Garibay votes yes.
Representative Gibson. Representative Gilchrist.
Representative Gilchrist votes yes.
Senator Gordon.
Senator Gordon votes yes.
Representative Gonzalez. Representative Haddad.
Haddad votes yes.
Oh, one more time for me, sir. Oh,
Hello?
I hear you now. I need to see you though. I'll come back to you. Representative Hall. Representative Harrison.
Representative Harrison votes yes.
Representative Hoxa.
Rep. Hoxa votes yes.
Representative Johnson.
Representative Johnson votes yes.
Representative Khanna.
Representative Khanna votes yes.
One more time for me, ma'am, because I didn't see you.
Representative Khanna votes yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Kennedy.
Kennedy votes yes.
Senator Kushner.
Senator Kushner votes yes.
Perfect.
Senator Lesser.
Senator Lesser votes yes.
Senator Marks.
Senator Marks votes yes.
Representative McCarthy. Holy moly.
Representative McCarty votes yes.
Nice to see you, ma'am.
You too.
Senator McCrory. Representative Nolan.
Susan, I'm going to take Douglas's spot and I'm going to do what he does all the time. Rep. Harris votes yes.
Oh, we will discuss. I got your vote though.
He did that to interrupt me, Susan.
He did that purposely
Yes.
on you, Representative Nolan. I know that to be true.
In the affirmative.
Thank you, sir. Representative Porter. Representative Osborne.
Representative Osborne votes yes.
Representative Reyes. Representative Rosario.
Representative Rosario votes in the affirmative.
Thank you, sir. Representative Retigliano.
Rep. Retigliano votes yes.
Representative Ryan.
Representative Ryan votes yes.
Representative Sanchez.
Representative Sanchez votes yes.
Senator Slapp,
Senator Slapp votes yes.
Representative Sims.
Representative Sims votes in the affirmative.
Thank you, sir. Senator Summers. Representative Terziak. Senator Winfield.
Senator Winfield in the affirmative.
Representative Zawistowski.
Representative Zawistowski votes yes.
Representative Candelaria, I saw you.
Candelaria votes yes.
Thank you, sir. All right,
Madam.
Representative Haddad, let's give this a go again.
Representative Haddad votes yes.
Hey, thank you, sir. All right, are there any members of the Appropriations Committee who have not yet cast their vote who would like to do so at this time?
Madam Administrator, do you have the tally?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Total number voting 41, those voting yea 41, those voting nay 0, those abstaining 0, those absent not voting 12.
The motion passes and the Appropriations Committee will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Representative Nolan, seconded by Representative Delnicki. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any
Aye.
abstentions? Motion carries. And I would now turn this over to Energy and Technology.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Energy and Technology Committee reconvenes and adjourns. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Human Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Human Services Committee reconvenes and adjourns. Thank you.
Madam Administrator, is there any other business to come before the committee? Or when is our next business day?
We will be back together on August 22nd with our good friends from the Department of Social Services to hear the Community Services Block Grant Allocation Plan and to hear waiver applications for ABI 1 and ABI 2.
Thank you. We are now done with our business for the day. Everybody have a nice day.